Hello everyone, my name is Stacy Mitchell and I am the Director of the Monroe County Tourist Development Council, locally referred to as the TDC. I was introduced to the Florida Keys nearly 40 years ago by my parents, and once I graduated from college, I fulfilled my mother's dream and moved to Key West. I have been with the TDC for nearly 20 years, and I have been the TDC Director for the last 5. Unfortunately, 4 of those years have been mired in disaster or crisis, so I find myself in a unique position of having to learn to deal with emergencies on the fly, and it has felt like on a continual basis. But as a long-term resident, as a parent, as an involved member of the community, I, and along with the great team that I am surrounded by, strive to make a difference in our economic vitality and how the TDC actually helps our residential communities. Today's presentation, we will review what the TDC is all about, how we are funded and where the money goes, local benefits of a tourism-based economy, crisis management, and long-term objectives. Who are we and why the name Tourist Development Council? Well, a TDC is a public body created by referendum of the electors. It's a joining of public and private sectors and their efforts to assist in the development and/or maintenance of a tourism economy. Funding is generated by those who rent a unit in a licensed lodging facility overnight, whether here on vacation or here to conduct business. One of the most important things to take with you today is that the TDC is not funded by Monroe County residents, full stop. The revenues are generated by the taxes paid by our overnighting visitors. TDC expenses do not affect the millage rate. The revenues generated by our overnighting visitors actually help in easing the tax burden on local residents. The TDC is largely governed by state statutes. We must adhere to the language written in the statutes and submit an annual report to the Governor's Office, the President of the Florida Senate, as well as the Speaker of the Florida House, outlining our program, including expenditures and financials for their review. The TDC Board of Directors is made up of 9 volunteer members. 1 representative from each of the 5 districts is selected by the county commissioner from that district and must be actively involved with lodging and/or a tourism-related business. 2 members of the board are elected officials from the most populous municipality, and the mayor of Monroe County, or their designate, is also seated, representing the public sector. Each member serves a 3-year term. Decisions made at the TDC level are reviewed and considered at the BOCC level. Each region of the Keys has its own personality, needs, and residential concerns. Therefore, there are 5 district advisory committees, or DACs, seated to advise the TDC on that particular district's activity. There are 9 DAC members in 5 districts, and their qualifications are very specific as to the ability to serve. In addition to ownership or management of a lodging product or tourist-related business, there are 3 at-large members who are appointed by their county commissioner to represent the public sector. All 45 seated DAC members are volunteers. The DACs make recommendations to the TDC Board of Directors on district-specific advertising, capital project funding, and event grant funding. The next thing we're going to talk about is how the TDC is funded and how the money can be spent. The second highlight of today's presentation is the funding source of the TDC. Our visitors are charged a 12.5% tax for their lodging unit per night. 7.5% of that is the state sales tax. Breaking that down, the state sales tax is 6%, of which is the actual tax, 1% goes directly to Monroe County as an infrastructure tax, and 0.5% is a school tax, which contributes to the construction of schools throughout Monroe County. If we all remember the new Sugarloaf School and Plantation Key School, etc. Then there is a 4% tourist tax, also known as the bed tax. This is the only part of the total 12.5% that our visitors pay that actually funds the TDC. This 4% bed tax is broken in half. 2% for generic promotional efforts, marketing the Florida Keys and Key West as one destination. The other 2% is for district expenditures and stays in the district for the district. So this is where the DAC members make recommendations to the TDC on how and where to spend the money that their district generated. There are strict rules as to how this money can be used. Includes the following: promoting and advertising the destination for the purposes of tourism, events and activities which attract visitors, capital projects, beaches, zoos, parks, nature centers. Then there is the 1% tourist impact tax. This does not fund the Tourist Development Council, but this is an important revenue source for all of our communities, as half of this tax goes to the county general fund, helping to ease the millage rate or tax burden on our residents, and the other half goes to the land authority. According to state statutes, the 1% tourist impact tax can be used for the acquisition of environmentally sensitive land or the construction, redevelopment, or preservation of affordable housing in an area of critical state concern. Last year, this 1% tourist impact tax generated $14 million in revenues, and we are on track to exceed last year's contribution, as year to date, we're at the $12.7 million mark. So when you hear people say, why isn't the TDC helping with acquiring housing for our workforce? Well, the 1% tourist impact tax paid by our visitors through TDC marketing efforts is an economic generator for that purpose. So now let's talk about capital projects in the Florida Keys. One of the most important decisions that our District Advisory Committee members must make each year is granting money for capital projects in their respective district. There are strict guidelines that are defined by statute. We don't make up the rules. The project must be owned or operated by a government, county, or municipality, or a not-for-profit organization, and be open to the public. The project cannot be a private or for-profit business. In the past, only the county and municipalities were reimbursed 100% of their project costs. However, in light of the pandemic and the inability of our not-for-profit organizations to host large gatherings for fundraising efforts, this rule was changed. These entities are the backbone of our communities and deserve to be recognized as such. So beginning next year, all applicants, both governmental agencies and not-for-profits, are now eligible to receive up to 100% reimbursement of their project costs. How much, you ask? Well, over the past 10 years, $44 million has been invested by our visitors into our local infrastructure. Examples include beach renourishment, beach cleaning, coral restoration, park improvements, amphitheaters, museums, and cultural centers. For next year, $15.7 million has been awarded for projects, the most ever in a single year. $4 million has been allocated for beach and beach park facilities or cleaning. Now think about it. This helps ease the tax burden of the residents of the various municipalities or unincorporated areas throughout the county. They don't have to contribute that money. $2 million has been granted for eco-minded sustainability projects like coral reef restoration, anchor placement for mooring buoys, moat marine, etc. So the next thing the docs talk about is event funding. And the primary purpose of funding events is to bring visitors to the destination and to provide those visitors who are already here something to do. A total of $2.2 million was allocated countywide for next year. And here is something that I'd like to share with everyone. Not all events are created in the spirit of a street party. Grant funding has been awarded for environmentally focused, not-for-profit events, providing much-needed awareness and revenues to their cause. And other events contribute to local scholarships for Monroe County school children. Athletic events, including half marathons, long-distance swims, pole vaulting, etc., are examples of events that bring a health-oriented visitor to the destination for athletic competitions. Mango Fest helps benefit the Police Athletic League, which offers a myriad of programs for our communities. And then there is the Buccaneer Blast Regatta in Key Largo, which introduces youth groups to the competitive world of sailing. Another source of events and event funding is through our cultural umbrella. The TDC has granted over $11 million on performing and visual arts programs over the past 10 years, including exhibitions, theatrical productions, live musical performances, and public art installations. So the next topic we're going to talk about is crisis and storm preparedness. Well now, this is an area where I have become most familiar with these past 5 years, but I'm extremely fortunate in that our TDC operates much differently and more effectively than others in the state. Here's why. The TDC works in conjunction with the Emergency Operations Center and the BOCC on a direct level. We issue tourism advisories to all interested parties, both domestically and internationally, with concise, vetted, and up-to-date information direct from the EOC, the Health Department, the National Weather Service, and the National Hurricane Center. We offer a toll-free foreign language assistance hotline, providing our visitors with information in their native language free of charge. And most notably, we have a representative seated inside the National Hurricane Center alongside the forecasters. The decision to close or open for visitors is made by the EOC, the BOCC, and the municipalities. It is not made by the TDC. During times of crisis, the health and safety of our visitors and our residents will always be our foremost objective, and our program has won awards for doing just that. The next area we're going to talk about is our long-term objectives, and they reflect our status as members of our communities and the responsibility that comes with such. They are as follows. To sustain the economic viability of Monroe County, tourism is our only industry. It's our largest employer and tax contributor. To reinforce the sustainability messaging. To invest in our infrastructure and natural resources where permissible. Balancing the quality of life for our residents. To expand and enrich diversity in our marketing efforts. To promote visitor experiences that are meaningful and generate mindful visitation. To educate the community and our residents on how tourism works for them. I appreciate your time and your attention to this presentation today. I know it was a lot of information. If you have any questions on any of the information that I went over today, please send me an email. I thank you. It's been a privilege.